Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler at the University of Virginia with a Packers-Lions instant reaction. And we said, Ziggy put in the community page, of course, the one time we root for the Packers, they get a little bit of Viking-esque luck, Viking-esque results with the 34-31 loss.
The division was right in reach.
You could see it.
And Dan Campbell and Jared Goff tripped over it. David Montgomery just snagged it right away.
I really thought Green Bay on the first and goal from the 7-yard line, great position to take the lead, score a touchdown. They would have gone up 35-31 in that situation. Detroit then would have been forced to score a touchdown at the end of the game. That to me right there, it was a great game. And we're going to get into a bunch of different things. But as soon as Green Bay had the illegal block penalty, I think it was on Christian Watson, the screen. Yeah, that was when I went, I don't know if you're really going to stop Detroit here going down. That's actually exactly how I saw it going. Detroit going down, kicking a game-winning field goal. So again, a lot to talk about here. Great game. Let's start with Detroit and that whole first half. Ziggy, we were texting back and forth. I was texting with our good friend Tom, a Lions fan. The defensive performance at the start. And Jordan Love got going later, but the defensive performance from the D-line of Detroit, I mean, they had so many guys injured in this, and they were just talking about pulling people up from the practice squad. Aleem McNeil was hurt, kind of questionable that he was allowed back in the game. I know they said it was a separate head injury, but I don't know. If you leave with a concussion protocol, you come back, get another head injury, weird. Brian Branch was hurt in this game at one point. Like a lot of people... still getting hurt for the Detroit Lions defense. And I thought it was a really gutsy performance from them most of the night, really.
Yeah, this is the power of incredible coaching. And we've seen it. Aaron Glenn, I know he was tough at the beginning, but I mean, what are you supposed to say, right? The Lions have 16 defenders injured, right? That's a starting defense and a half of guys who aren't playing because they're injured. And what do? Obviously, it wasn't perfect. Obviously, there were mistakes from the Lions, right? Sometimes they played lazy. Sometimes didn't seem like they were 100% in it. Sometimes they gave stuff up to the Packers, particularly in the second half. But they consistently played well enough, especially in that first half, and really especially in that first quarter, to get off to a big enough start. The Packers were never able to catch quite back up and take a lead.
Yeah, and in the second half, I'm just looking here at the drive chart. Green Bay had the ball 5 times. They scored 4 touchdowns. They had the ball, 5 times and scored 3 touchdowns, 1 field goal, and then just 1 3 and out. So they got going on offense. The Packers did, but the first half, Green Bay punt, fumble. And then they got going from there. But you're right. That was a big enough lead for Detroit to hold on to throughout the game. Of course, Detroit also turned the ball over. But the big story to me of this game on the Detroit offensive side of the ball was Dan Campbell's aggressiveness. And it culminated with the 4th and inches decision to go for it. And they picked up the first down at the end. But also, both 2 of their touchdowns came on 4th and goal conversions 2 yards out. One on the pass to Tim Patrick, one on the pass to Jahmyr Gibbs. And you're always for it. You think Dan Campbell plays according to the stats, which he does, and
no, he doesn't.
I thought that's your whole argument, is that he goes according to the stats.
I used to think Dan Campbell played according to the stats, but this is just not true. Dan Campbell is aggressive because he wants to be aggressive. The stats were unanimous on that last play. You kick the field goal. It's not even close, the statistics say, but that's not who Dan Campbell is. He thought, I don't want to give Jordan Love the ball. I trust David Montgomery a lot more than I trust anything else. I trust my guys. We're going to go out and end the game. And if you look at, you can pull up the Ben Baldwin 4th down bot. It says that he lost 4 or 5% winning on that play, right? There are times when, that 4th and 1 further back, back was their
29-yard line? Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, the 29-yard line. It says kick the punt. What does Dan Campbell do? He goes for it. Why? Not because the numbers say so. Not because there's some nerd like me in his ear telling him what to do. He goes for it because that's just who he is, and that's just who his team is. And ultimately, that lines up better with the numbers because most guys just don't go for it when they should. Dan Campbell goes for it too often, but that's not because of the stats. That's because of who he is, who the Lions are, and who he wants them to be. And I think you can't help but respect that.
I mean, I guess I respect him sticking to who he is, sure, if we want whatever the hell that means. But I think, and I just want to put this out there to all the Lions fans who are listening. I think Dan Campbell's an awesome head coach. I think he does a great job. But when it comes to these decisions, I think it's going to cost. I think he's very likely to cost the Lions in the playoffs. I think that's very much on the table. I don't know what that
means, right?
Ziggy,
because people want to say like it might cost them in the playoffs. Usually his decisions are correct.
Ziggy, usually they cost them against San Francisco. I don't understand why people keep saying to me like that's not the situation.
San Francisco?
Because he already cost them a Super Bowl opportunity with his decision making, and now you're 11-1, and He's going for it from his own 29-yard line. I understand that he got it tonight, but Jared Goff slipped and fell. He's very lucky to hand that ball off to David Montgomery, or else the Packers have the football and they might have a chance to win that game. There's a difference to me between being aggressive and being ridiculous. And Dan Campbell has been ridiculous, and tonight he was fortunate. But against San Francisco, he wasn't. And when you're not fortunate in big moments, it costs you a season. And I really like him. I think he's an awesome motivator, awesome coach. But this is the one element of it where I really think that even Lions fans were saying, "What are we doing here?"
Because most people aren't thinking about this very carefully.
Sure, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
The fact it's likely to work out. It works out most of the time because it's likely to work out. Sometimes you get unlucky, but when you look at the aggregate of the decisions, this increases your chance to win. Right? Everybody wants to talk about the times it works out. Nobody wants to talk about the times when it's likely to work out, it does, and you get a touchdown. Right? The Lions won this game because of Dan Campbell's decision making. Him consistently keeping the ball in their hands and getting them touchdown after converting on fourth down is why they won this game. So you can focus on the one time it didn't work, right, which stands out like a sore thumb. Or you can look at the 4 out of 5 times it did, the 2 times it got them touchdowns, the time it iced the game, and got them the victory. Right?
I get it.
Frustrating. Yeah. And when you say it cost them a chance at a Super Bowl, the only reason they're in the NFC Conference Championship game is because Dan Campbell is making the right decision most of the time. That is consistently adding value.
I don't know if
no other head coach does.
I don't know if most of the time. I don't think he's separate. I know that your numbers say, but I am not sure if you really watch it how often Dan Campbell's decision making is that impactful of where the Lions are now.
They're 11-2 if he doesn't go for it on fourth down most of the time this game. It's that simple.
I'm not sure if he doesn't go for it on fourth down. The Packers are probably
2 touchdowns off the board.
Well, then let's take the Packers touchdown off the board too. Let's replace with 2 field goals in this game. Yeah, maybe I guess you gained 2 points in this game. Like, sure, we could say that, but I like what you take away the Packers touchdown on the fourth down from the 29. Take away what is it? You take away 6 points. 8 points from the 2 touchdowns before, and then add on your field goal. So I guess it works out. You get your extra 4 points in this game from it. But I'm just saying across the board. I'm saying across the board. I just think it's dangerous for them. It's fun to watch. Like, it makes for great TV. But last year when he was fourth and it was the 2-point conversion from the 7-yard line, and you lose against the Cowboys.
Well, that was just tilt. Everybody knows that was just tilt.
well, yeah, it's just they got it the first time. There was the horrible. What was it, legal man downfield or something like that?
Yeah, it was like failure to report.
Yeah, failure to report. Whatever. This is just what I'm saying. And, Lions fans, let me know. I'm sure they love the guy. I would probably love him too if he were my head coach. It's just a couple of the decisions to me have ramifications that maybe he doesn't think all the way through. I don't know. Like, if Jared Goff slips tonight, the conversation across the media and everything is crazy. And I guess you would just say, I don't care. He made the right call.
I mean, I'm not sure it was the right call to go for it there, but if it is or isn't, it's not because Jared Goff improbably slipped, right? You don't make decisions based on stuff like that. You make decisions based on what's available to you.
Sure.
Now, admittedly, they shouldn't have converted it at all because his knee was down before he handed it off on that play. So they didn't even actually convert, but it doesn't matter.
What do you mean?
Refs missed it. You can go back and watch the replay review on that fourth down handoff when Goff is slipping, his knee hits the ground.
Yeah, but it's not college.
I'm just saying.
Ziggy's been watching a lot of Notre Dame football lately. You have to get touched, remember? No,
I remember.
So other than that, though, so we can argue about Dan Campbell.
But here's the importance of this win for the Lions. You've now swept Green Bay out of the NFC North race.
Yep.
You have stayed a game ahead of Minnesota and Philadelphia. You kept a division record tiebreaker in case you lose to Minnesota. This is a common opponent against Philadelphia, right? So you keep your common opponent tiebreaker too. Like if you lose this game, suddenly the Lions are in danger of potentially falling behind Minnesota. Even if they win the division, they're in danger of losing the 1 seed, having to go to Philadelphia. I'm not going to say it's all locked up, but as we said in our preview show, this was the single most important game for the Lions if they wanted to keep that 1 seed, because Philadelphia is racing right behind them.
Yeah.
So an opportunity to keep those tiebreakers, to get a huge win against what's probably your hardest game left on the schedule. It's a really important win for the Lions.
Oh yeah. It was, as we said, the most important.
Which is why we want them to lose,
that they had left. 100%. Yeah, and the Detroit offense, outside of the Dan Campbell coaching situations, they just have this ability to become unstoppable in moments that matter. And I feel like time and time again this season, when the game's on the line and Jared Goff has the ball in his hands, he finds a way to milk down the clock. Not just win the game, but also run the clock down far enough where no one's going to have a chance to tie it up later or win it on their own. They did it against the Vikings. They did it against the Texans. They did it against the Packers. They consistently find ways to perform when it matters, and they're just tough to beat, man, across the board. If Tim Patrick plays like this, you add another weapon in. It's just tough when you're rooting against them. You really kind of feel it more of how inevitable at times they can become. I was really impressed with Detroit.
Yeah, it's so important to have that last possession. So many times we've seen quarterbacks, particularly over in Green Bay, get really improbable situations where they're down by just a few points with a few seconds left on the clock and they make a couple big plays. And honestly, with the way Jordan Love was playing, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of some crazy bomb to Christian Watson, avoiding a bunch of rushers to seal up the game. So getting that last possession is so important to winning. The Lions were able to do it. Lots of props to them. And I'm not going to come out here like it's Jack and say they're unbeatable. They're never losing another game in the history of the franchise. I am going to say they look very, very good. And it's not a coincidence they're number one on the list of the Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, they look very good, but at the same time, I think this is the most beatable they've been all season. If that, I think that can go hand in hand here, where they've been that good earlier in the year. This is the most vulnerable Detroit is, but they're still one of the best teams. I mean, Jack was texting us. He said they're this good, which with a bunch of their backups in. How is that possible? On the Green Bay side of things, if you could just erase that first quarter and start the game with their 11-play, 70-yard touchdown drive in the second, from then on, the Packer offense went touchdown, touchdown, punt, touchdown, field goal on that 9-play, 56-yard drive that ultimately, as I said, I felt cost them the game, not being able to convert from the first and goal situation. The Green Bay offense and Jordan Love really got going. We texted in the chat a few times, this Jordan Love, he's back. And that second half performance, I thought that was superstar Jordan Love. That was the Jordan Love that if he shows up the rest of the year, every single Packers fan can sit back comfortable in their chair and say, all right, I'm going to enjoy the show and see how far they can take them. The issue was on the defensive side of the ball for much of the night. They had a little moment where they started to, with the interception, and then they turned over Detroit on downs inside the 30-yard line. But there's so many injuries again to that defense. People are talking about the Detroit injuries a lot on the Green Bay side as well. So what was your bigger takeaway, Ziggy? Jordan Love being back, or can the defense actually stop Detroit?
If you're a Packers fan, I think you have to, looking back on this and having some flashbacks to last year, where Jordan Love, I know if you look at the stat line, it looks like a pretty pedestrian, 12 for 20, 206 yards and a touchdown. That does not reflect what he was out there doing during this game. Jordan Love made a lot of critical plays in big situations. He played well. But as much as Packers fans, I think, want us to come on and blame the referees and the no calls or whatever, this loss is firmly on the defense. All you needed really was one stop on Detroit. If you could just get one at some point in the latter half of this game, I know they were able to do it occasionally, but just one more, I think the Packers are able to wrap this game up. But what do you have? It's not just the Lions outplaying you, right? Obviously, the Lions played very well, but the penalties were killer. I mean, you saw Matt LaFleur say it at halftime, right? They were just stupid, boneheaded penalties coming at exactly the wrong time. Guys would get undisciplined. I mean, you saw in that Amon-Ra St. Brown catch, I can't remember who the cornerback was on the play, but because he got a little bit of a push, he started to take the play off looking for a flag, waving his arms around, rather than following Amon-Ra and potentially having a chance to break up the play. Like, it just didn't seem like this Packers defense was 100% in the game. And that really, really hurt them at a couple of key moments.
I think that the two drives in particular that it feels like you're talking about here are the ones to end the game, where Green Bay took the 28-24 lead and Detroit responded with a 10-play, 70-yard touchdown drive, and then had the game-winning 11-play, 53-yard drive. And those two just felt, I mean, especially that last drive, the fourth down conversions, the converting first and 20 or second and 20 roughly into, or second 17 into a first down. There were a lot of plays on the defensive side of the ball where it just felt like Green Bay was one stop away, one moment. And again, two of the touchdowns, fourth and goal. They had the interception, which was huge. Like that brought them right back into the lead. But they never really had any other moments. I guess they had the fourth down stop that also gave them the lead. So they had a couple great moments.
They had big plays. They just needed one more. And for all the big plays they had, there was at least one and sometimes more than one big miss that compensated for it.
Well, do you know what's interesting is, other than the interception, every single Green Bay touchdown was followed by a Detroit touchdown. And listen to these drives. Listen to these drives. So Green Bay had the touchdown to make it 7-10 in the first half. Detroit follows up with a 12-play, 70-yard drive. Green Bay opens the second half with the touchdown. Then you had the interception. Green Bay scores again. 13-play, 70-yard drive for Detroit. Then later in the game, Green Bay scores 10-play, 70-yard touchdown drive. So every single time you had a chance to double them up there, it was after you scored, they were finding a way to go on these long drives, kill the momentum. And I think Kirk Herbstreit said, keep Jordan Love off the field, who he is a quarterback when he gets in rhythm, really difficult to stop. And tonight, I mean, you saw it, but you want to give him the ball more, and that's an opportunity for Green Bay to turn on the Jets. And when they light up the scoreboard, very few teams can keep up with them. But it was weird being a Packer fan tonight. Like, you had the ups and downs, and it felt like, all right, they're going to find a way to win this here. Like, that's what blue sky franchises do. But when it's your year, it's your year. And Detroit's been doing this for multiple weeks now, finding ways to win games that, it feels like they actually should lose.
Yeah, your defense has to get off the field in this situation. They were 7-15 on third downs. They gave up 7 for 15 attempts. And then you have to keep in mind they gave up 4 out of 5 first downs on the fourth down. So really that's 11 for 15 in situations where you need to get the Lions off the field. And that's just unacceptable. The Lions were able to force the Packers to be 1 for 5 on third downs. Totally different situation if you're able to do that. The Packers didn't have any fourth down attempts. Like you said, that inability to get the Lions off the field and let Jordan Love have an advantage. Because the way he was playing after that first quarter, if Jordan Love just gets a possession advantage, I really believe if they had just gotten one more stop, this game was over. And again, you can point to the penalties. I know there were some obvious no calls, but I don't like focusing on penalties because honestly, sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't go your way. And there's so much in your control outside of no calls that, it's funny that we've got people in the comments saying that like the NFL's rigging it so the Lions win, when maybe the most consistent theme in the NFL for the past 30 years has been Lions fans complaining the NFL's rigging it against them because nobody likes it. That's not the thing to focus on this game. The thing to focus on is Jeff Hafley needs to figure out a way to get this defense more disciplined and to get them off the field. Turnovers are nice, but you don't even need turnovers. You just need to stop the Lions sometimes on third and fourth down. That's it. You got to be better than 11 for 15.
Well, you know what it also can be, Ziggy, is when you have 3rd and 6 or you have 3rd and 8, whatever it may be, you got to try and prevent that throw, even if it's not getting the first down. Don't let it get the 6 yards so it's 4th and inches. Because, again, in most situations, I'm going to go for that unless I'm on my own 30-yard line. But how many times have we seen the Eagles in those? Remember earlier in the season? I think that's how Green Bay lost to Philly on one of Philly's long drives in the fourth quarter. It's like a 3rd and 7 or something, and They get it to 4th and inches, Philly sneak or tush push, and then they get the first down there. It's like sometimes those plays where you can gain 5 yards on 3rd and 6 are wind up being just as valuable because you're able to sneak it in and get the first down, as opposed to if you tackle them an extra yard or 2 backwards, you're probably getting the football back.
Yeah, and that's going to be something you have to fix, as you say. The Eagles and the Lions are maybe the 2 teams in the NFL most willing to call your bluff on 4th and inches. And I think we saw actually on that very last play before the field goal, the Packers were expecting hard count shenanigans. The Lions took advantage of this really well. You can see Jared Goff did a hard count, didn't snap the ball. The Packers defense relaxed a little bit, then they immediately snap it. Well, the Packers thinking, oh, they're just trying to get us off sides. Like the Eagles and the Lions will call your bluff. And if you're Green Bay, I know this was a tough loss, but I think they're still thinking Super Bowl internally.
100%.
I think they're coming away from this thinking our offense is good. We just have to fix it up on defense. You're probably going to have to win in Philadelphia and in Detroit if you want to do that. And you're going to have to be able to be better than this.
Yeah, the offense is back. Jordan Love is back. I think you're very comfortable with where you're at. That is a huge takeaway for Green Bay. You just got to get and let's also be clear, because Packers fans, I'm sure, will point this out. At the end of the game, you're missing. I don't know if Williams was on the field, but I'm assuming you're missing Williams. You're missing Ballard. You're missing Edrin Cooper. You're missing Jair Alexander. A lot of guys were injured. A lot of guys were injured who will be playing. Detroit,
unlike the Lions, they're getting some of those guys back.
That's a big difference, and it's something to kind of pay attention to. The Green Bay defenders who are out will be coming back. Aleem McNeil's coming back. Yes, Brian Branch will be back, but most of those other guys that Detroit has injured, Aiden Hutchinson's out for the year. Davenport's out for the year. I don't know if Anzalone will be back for the playoffs. He might be, right? He's on IR right now.
Yeah, we'll see.
So the injuries for Detroit are a little longer lasting, and that was definitely on play for both teams tonight. You saw the weakened defenses, but yes, as far as the Packers go, I think Super Bowl is definitely in play because you can go on the road with the way Jordan Love's playing and compete with anyone. And man, if we get round 3 of Packers Lions, that'll be a lot of fun. It might be a first round game, could be a second round game, but if it happens, the Packers are definitely one of the teams Detroit does not want to see in the second round of the playoffs if they end up hosting the 1 seed.
No, well, I don't want to criticize the Packers defense too much because they did something this game that very, very few teams have been able to do. They shut down David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs on the ground. David Montgomery, 3.6 yards per carry on 14 carries. Jahmyr Gibbs, 2.9 yards per carry on 15 carries. Like, I think the Packers actually, their run defense is elite. This made me very confident that if they have to face Philadelphia, they'll be able to shut down Saquon Barkley. The kinds of change, if the Lions had gashed them on the ground for 300 yards, I'd say it's hopeless. It's very unlikely you're going to be able to come back and beat them. This game, it feels like the kinds of things that went wrong were the sorts of things that in a future matchup might actually be better. Like getting 1 or 2 guys back might actually help you with.
And I don't want to be, I'm happy that you pointed that out, Ziggy, because this is just a great football game with 2 really good teams. That's something we've been criticizing the Packer defense a little. They had the turnover on downs. They had the interception. They made a couple big plays that usually can find a way to win big games like this. So it absolutely wasn't all bad, especially with the injuries. Detroit's just a really hard offense to stop. And there's a reason. They're one of the best in the league at everything. So I thought the Packers, for the most part, played a solid game on defense. They had moments where Detroit was just Detroit. And 1 or 2 plays, I mean, you take away one of those 4th and goal situations, or you get the stop on that last fourth and 1, Green Bay might win this. So it's not like they got torched, but I just would have, as someone who's rooting for the Packers, I was really hoping for that one stop to let Green Bay extend their lead beyond the touchdown, or to a touchdown as opposed to 4 points. And they weren't able to do that. But that happens when you play the best offense in the league.
Yeah, well, the Lions are going to the playoffs now.
Yep.
They've punched their ticket. This is the first time I think the TV said since the 93 and 94 seasons that the Lions have gone to the playoffs in back-to-back years. I think things might work out a little bit differently for them this time. But at this point, Detroit's a force to be reckoned with. And Green Bay, I think if they want to achieve all they want to achieve this year, at some point or another, the Lions have won 6 of the last 7 meetings of these teams. The Lions have been very, very good, and they've figured out a way to beat this iteration of the Packers. I think if the Packers want to make it far into the playoffs, at some point the road runs through Detroit. They are going to have to go on the road to Ford Field, and they are going to have to win. I think they can on the base of this. This did not look like a Lions team that was totally unbeatable. There's no way you have a chance against them. It came down to the very last plays of the game for the Lions to win. So there's a lot to improve on if you're the Packers. But my takeaway from this, the biggest thing for them, since that's initially how we got here, this Packers team is for real. They went on the road to one of the best teams in the NFL, a team that's been blowing out teams, right? They beat the Jaguars 52-6 at home. They beat the Colts 24-6 on the road. They beat the Packers a whole lot worse in Green Bay. This Packers team is trending upward, and that gives me optimism if I were a Packers fan that things could get good for them towards the end of the season. They can make one of those patented Packers wildcard playoff runs.
Yep. The final thought I'll say here is they need to find a way to get to hit Jared Goff. Because for the most part in this game, he didn't really get touched that much.
Yeah, well, the Lions found a way to overcome Green Bay's offensive line, which is, you wouldn't know from this game, one of the best pass blocking offensive lines in the NFL. They found a way to get at Jordan Love.
In the first half, and that's all they needed. Oh, yes, sometimes
they always got to him.
Sometimes illegally, yes. But in the first...
little face mask, a little whoosh.
Particularly in that first half, they were able to get to him, and that gave them the lead that they were able to hold on to long enough, where Green Bay could never quite extend their lead. So yeah, they just got to get to Jared. You have to find a way there, and it's easier said than done against arguably the best offensive line in football. But that's what Jeff Hafley has to figure out. Get Jared Goff pressured, and then he'll make mistakes. But it's hard to do. All right, 34-31, the Lions beat the Packers. They go to 12-1 on the season, extending their NFC North lead. The Packers 9-4. Still holding on to that 6th seed in the NFC playoff picture, but the division at this point seems like a pipe dream. We'll see. We'll see if our Vikings can get there. Like go Buffalo next week. It's just that kind of season for Detroit, man. A lot of things. I mean, great team and luck on their side. It's hard to beat that. Good and lucky is a lethal combination. So, all right. We'll see you next time on the Paul Farrington Show.